DIDDY's gonna get ya. DIDDY's gonna get ya. Internet people, what's happening in these internet streets? Oh my lord and people. Welcome back to our ongoing coverage of the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Lord have mercy. In this video, we'll recap the key developments from days 11 and 15. People, let me remind you, Sean Combs faces multiple federal charges, including sex trafficking and racketeering and blowing up niggas' cars. Oh, Lord have mercy. Day 11, Capricorn Clark takes the stand. Day 11 of the Sean Combs trial introduced two powerful voices from within Combs' tight inner circle. Capricorn Clark, a former executive assistant, and Deontay Nash, a former stylist and personal assistant. Whoa, their testimonies painted a chilling picture of a life behind the luxury and celebrity. Whoa. Capricorn Clark described a workplace dominated by secrecy and fear. She said her duties included tracking Combs' business and personal movements, noting that it wasn't unusual to be asked to monitor other people too. In one instance, she claimed she warned rapper Kid Cudi about a potential break-in allegedly orchestrated by Combs. Whoa. Anyway, she says, you had to always be watching him and who he was watching, she said. Clark's testimony reinforced the idea of a controlled environment where loyalty meant silence and silence often meant complicity. Whoa! People. Then came Deontay Nash, people, and his testimony was perhaps the most emotionally jarring of the day. Oh, Lord, people. He recalled a brutal 2013 incident at the Los Angeles hotel. According to Nash, Combs violently assaulted Cassie Ventura, grabbing her by the neck. He said, "Oh, bitch, I'm gonna shake you and shake you. Oh, I'm gonna shake you, bitch." Throwing her across the room and punching her. She hit her head on a bed frame and was visibly bleeding. Look what you made me do. Nash remembered Combs saying to room. He also spoke of frequent verbal abuse, stating Combs often used degrading slurs like bitch, slut, and hoe when referring to Cassie, and always in public in front of staff. You could see it in her face. She was shrinking more each day. Nash explained the fear and silence that gripped Combs' employees. They were bound by strict NDAS and warned of retaliation if they spoke out. Put it bluntly, you hear that, people? If you spoke out, we weren't just staff, we were shields. We protected him from himself and from consequences. People, when cross-examined, the defense tried to challenge his credibility by bringing up past financial disputes. But Nash stood his ground. He stood 10 toes down on business, saying he testified because, quote, the truth needed to be heard. Whoa. Together, Clark and Nash offered a devastating insight into what it was like behind closed doors. Surveillance, silence, and violence. My God, that rhyme, people. Pause, let me say that shit one more time. Surveillance, silence, and goddamn violence weren't the exception. They were part of the system. Day 12, Maya's first testimony and toxic control. Well, day 12 delivered back-to-back developments. The defense motioned for a mistrial, which was denied, and a pivotal witness took the stand under a pseudonym known to the court as Maya. This former employee of Sean Combs offered deeply disturbing testimony that marked a turning point in the prosecution's case. People, her allegation, or should I say allegations, span years of alleged abuse, beginning with the moment she says she realized she was no longer safe. Oh, Lord. According to Maya, in 2013, she witnessed Combs violently assault Cassie Ventura, an incident that left Cassie's head split open after being slammed into a bed platform. Maya recalled jumping on Combs' back with another assistant in attempt to stop the attack. People, I realized we were in real danger, she said through tears. Oh my Lord. Maya described the workplace as chaotic and emotionally abusive. She once worked 5 straight days without sleep and said her duties range from preparing tax documents to bizarre personal tasks, including cracking his knuckles. People, what the hell? Hell no. To the no, no, no. Hell to the no. Oh my Lord. People, the highs were really high and the lows were really, really low. In one particularly humiliating moment, Maya testified that while bleeding through her clothes and asking to change her tampon, Combs exploded in rage. He went on a really humiliating rant in front of everybody, then threw a bowl of spaghetti at me. Oh my Lord. She said he then chased her upstairs and later suspended her without pay. Whoa, wicked. Wicked. Maya also described disturbing sexual assaults. One alleged incident occurred in 2009 or 2010 when she said she woke up in a bunk bed to find Combs on top of her, sexually assaulting her. My Lord, I just froze. I didn't react. It was very quick, but felt like forever. She also claimed that Combs repeatedly threw objects at her and once slammed her arm in a door. Oh my Lord. Perhaps one of the most revealing aspects of Maya's testimony was how Combs used his fame as a shield. She recalled being pulled over while speeding to meet him. She called Combs, put him on speakerphone, and the officer, excited to speak with the celebrity, let her go without a ticket. On another occasion, while Combs was in the car, officers allegedly backed off after realizing who he was. My Lord. A cop said, "My bad," and walked away. Shit. Her testimony reinforced a consistent pattern emerging across the trial, a work culture built on fear, manipulation, and unchecked power. The courtroom was silent as Maya recounted each story, each one pulling the curtain back further on what prosecutors are describing as a system of control and silence. Silence, people, silence. Day 12 also featured law enforcement testimony and a failed defense motion for a mistrial, which the judge denied outright, stating public scrutiny is not grounds for mistrial when facts are being fairly adjudicated. Lord of mercy! Altogether, Maya's debut understands set the tone for what would be some of the most emotionally charged and damning days in the trial. Lord have mercy. Day 13, emotional testimony from Maya. Lord. Day 13 brought one of the most emotionally raw moments of the trial so far, the return of Maya, a former assistant to Sean Combs. But this time, it wasn't just past abuse she spoke about. It was the continued fear that followed her long after she left his employment. So, Maya began by recalling a 2019 incident involving Cassie Ventura, where she saw visible bruises on Cassie's arm and described her as looking terrified. She said, "I saw Cassie try to cover a bruise on her arm. She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to." That alone stunned the courtroom, but her testimony then turned to what happened after Ventura filed her bombshell lawsuit against Combs in November 2023, the lawsuit that triggered a wave of similar claims and ultimately helped bring the federal charges we're seeing unfold in this very trial. Thank God, people, all the content creators on YouTube are being fed. Round of applause. Yes, the internet streets are being fed. Now cut that shit off. Cut it off. Maya testified that shortly after the lawsuit hit the headlines, Combs' longtime security associate, known as D-Rock, reached out to her directly. He told her that Combs missed her and wanted to reconnect. According to Maya, D-Rock even hinted that she could help publicly, possibly by making a statement in support of Combs. Whoa, her reaction, terror! She said she immediately began strategizing how to respond without putting herself at risk. She told the court, "I was terrified. I had to come up with a game plan. I played dumb because I didn't want my life in danger. I didn't want my life in danger." Eventually, she said, Combs himself reached out and her response was instinctive and visceral. "I threw my phone and ran outside." Whoa. But it didn't end there. In December 2023, D-Rock contacted her again, saying that Combs still wanted to talk. Maya described the moment she realized this wasn't going away. "Oh my God, it's not going to stop!" She closed her testimony by saying she believed these outreach efforts were about control, not closure. She said Combs wanted to make sure she wasn't a threat. This wasn't just a recollection of past trauma. It was a chilling example of how that trauma may have followed her into the present, and a stark illustration of the ongoing fear surrounding Combs' influence. Maya's testimony on day 13 people added powerful weight to the prosecution narrative of intimidation and long-term psychological control. Bloody hell. Bloody hell. Day 14, cross-examination turns aggressive. Whoa. So day 14 saw the defense launch an aggressive cross-examination of Maya. They attempted to undermine her credibility by referencing past text messages and social media posts in which she praised Combs. Whoa. Lead defense attorney Carl Reed quoted a 2018 message where Maya allegedly called Combs a genius boss. Maya responded pointedly, "That was before I knew what he was capable of." She. My lord. While the defense pushed to portray her as a disgruntled former employee, the prosecution quickly countered with emails and HR records showing Maya had attempted to resign multiple times before eventually being terminated. It was a tense day that exposed the trial's emotional stakes and the high wire act both legal teams are navigating. Whoa! Day 15, more inner circle testimonies. So, day 15 returned the focus to the structure and internal policies of Combs' business empire. Two former employees whose identities remained sealed under court protection described a workplace where NDAs weren't just standard, they were weapons. Whoa. One testified, "We signed NDAs, but what we really signed was silence. Silence or lose everything." My lord. Both witnesses detailed financial manipulation tactics, including withheld bonuses, sudden determinations, and threats of lawsuits if they spoke to the media. Surveillance was another recurring theme, with one stating they discovered listening devices in employee lounges. Whoa. People, this testimony added further layers. The prosecutions claimed that Combs ran his inner circle through fear, financial control, and people, constant surveillance. Oh, Lord. People, what a time to be alive.
Sandbox of fun. Unscramble few words. riddle. How many letters are in the alphabet? Tell us your answers in the comments.
Balcony threats, knife throws, and the psychological of control. My Lord. Day 16 of the trial took a deeply disturbing turn as Brianna Bangolan, a longtime friend and confidant of Cassie Ventura, took the stand. Whoa, her testimony offered a raw, first-hand look into Sean Combs' private life, one shaped by rage, fear, and unchecked power. Whoa! Bangolan recounted a chilling moment that drew gasp in the courtroom. Combs allegedly dragged her out onto the balcony of a high-rise hotel during a fit of rage. She said he grabbed her and physically leaned her over the railing of the 17th floor, yelling, "You know what the fuck you did?" My Lord. She described the sheer terror of that moment, saying she genuinely believed she might die. Prosecutors used this incident to underscore what they say was Combs' frequent use of intimidation and physical dominance to silence and control those around him. But that wasn't the only violent incident she described. Bangolan, bloody hell, people, this name is giving me trouble. Also recounted a separate confrontation between Combs and Cassie, where she says Combs became enraged and threw a kitchen knife at Ventura across the room. My Lord. Fortunately, it missed. But as Bangolan testified, Cassie froze. We all froze. You didn't move when he was angry. You just survived it. My God. The courtroom remained tensed as she explained how violence in Combs' orbit had become disturbingly normalized. She spoke about the culture of silence, reinforced by NDAs and veiled threats. Everyone knew the risk of speaking up. She said, "We weren't employees, we were hostages to the lifestyle." Day 16 also saw prosecutors introducing photos of the alleged balcony and knife, as well as timestamps from internal hotel security footage confirming Combs was present in the suite that night. This was clearly part of their effort to substantiate testimonies with forensic and visual corroboration. Whoa. In closing emotional testimony. Bloody hell, people.
I don't give a fuck.
Said, I stayed quiet for years because I thought it was over, but now I see he did this to so many people. We all carried that fear. It was a harrowing day in court, people. One that added new weight to the prosecution's claim that this was not just about isolated outbursts, but a pattern of domination and psychological warfare. Oh my God. Day 17, wire transfers, panic rooms, and the financier's testimony. Whoa, people. So day 17 shifted focus from personal testimony to financial and logistical underpinnings of Sean Combs' alleged operations. It was a day less about physical violence and more about control through money, surveillance, and manipulation. Whoa! Taking the stand was Elliot Graves, a former junior accountant who worked with Bad Boy Worldwide Entertainment Group between 2016 and 2020, people. Graves provided the jury with an inside look at what prosecutors are calling the financial infrastructure of coercion. Whoa, my Lord, that just gives me shivers down my spine. Bloody hell. Graves testified that he was directed by Combs' inner circle to initiate regular wire transfers to individuals identified only by aliases. These recipients were described as consultants, but Graves revealed these weren't corporate contractors. Some of them were women listed only by first names or nicknames. One invoice just said, Private Wellness Weekend. My Lord. He further stated that many of these payments were processed through shell companies or via offshore accounts, primarily in the Cayman Islands and the Isle of Man. Oh, interesting. The prosecution argued this was a method used to mask transactions tied to alleged trafficking activity. But the day's most startling revelation came during cross-examination when Graves was asked to verify a set of blueprints and security layouts of Combs' Holby Hills estate. These documents, people, were introduced by Homeland Security investigators and included, listen to this one right here, included an underground panic room fitted with biometric locks, a network of security cameras hidden in private bedrooms and bathrooms, logs showing real-time monitoring access granted to Combs' personal devices. Graves testified. It was like a bunker for the rich. But it wasn't just for safety, it was for control. He said that even staff were tracked with internal memos warning assistants not to use restricted corridors without clearance. The prosecution used this to suggest that Combs maintained a fortress-like environment where his movements and the movements of others could be surveilled and managed at all times. Later in the day, another witness, Talia Reeves, a former assistant house manager, corroborated Graves' claims. My, I had to put that explosion right there. Good God, this content is... My Lord, thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. Anywho, Talia Rees described how guest phones were often confiscated and how she was once tasked with setting up a room with mood, lighting, champagne, and concealed cameras.
Spicy.
When asked if she knew why, she responded, "You didn't ask questions in that house. You just did what you were told." My God. In total, Day 17 painted a disturbing picture of a systematic operation with layers of control that went beyond physical violence. People, the Judge Subramaniam, something like that, people, if I can't pronounce her name.
I don't give a fuck.
Bloody hell. Directly reprimanded Sean Combs for repeated nodding and eye contact with jurors. She said, "Mr. Combs, this behaviour will not be tolerated. Further violations may result in removal." Prosecutors argued that these structures were not just eccentric celebrity luxuries, but tools used to isolate, intimidate, and exploit. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Day 18, love contract and hotel nights. My Lord. Day 18 marked a turning point as Jane, a once anonymous former partner of Sean Combs, took the stand under a pseudonym, delivering deeply disturbing and detailed testimony in the federal courthouse in Manhattan. So, people, she revealed the existence of a $10,000 per month love contract. My God, this is disgusting. Where Combs paid her rent and other expenses. She testified that she felt financially trapped under his arrangement, saying, "I relied on it because it felt like the only reason you have me around." Oh my life. Get a job. Get a job, woman. As part of that so-called arrangement, she described prolonged drug-fueled sexual encounters that mirrored the freak-offs Cassie Ventura detailed earlier. These parties, often held in luxury hotel suites, involved paid male escorts. Jane conveyed the emotional weight of these sessions, stating that participants abused drugs just to endure my life. "I initially felt excited, but later realized the experience opened a Pandora's box." Her testimony not only echoed Cassie's, but added a fresh layer. Combs used financial dependencies, gift-giving, and emotional manipulation to maintain control. She quoted him warning, "You have a rude awakening. You just have silence." Guys like Macbeth. It was a shocking glimpse into an environment that prosecutors argue was coercive, far from consensual. Day 19, control, surveillance, and fear. My Lord. People, on Day 19, Jane Doe returned and held firm under aggressive cross-examination. The defense attempted to undermine her credibility by calling these arrangements voluntary. but key testimonies and documents supported her statements. She described how Combs controlled every facet of her life. He controlled where I lived, what I wore, who I talked to. Oh, Jesus. Jesus, come quick, Jesus. That level of surveillance and isolation underpins the prosecution's theory, coercion via control and dependency. In support, prosecutors introduced bank transfers, texts and emails showing their $10,000 per month rent and gift payments. My God. When challenged, Jane didn't waver. She calmly stated how this wasn't a free relationship, but a cage of emotional control. I felt trapped. It wasn't just about the money. It was fading any choice I thought I had. The judge also reminded the jury, remember, consent under duress is not consent. Reinforcing legal scrutiny on the power dynamics in play. Together, people, my lord. Days 19. My lord. People, there's also been wild speculation on social media. Many suggest that Jane Doe might be Daphne Joy, the ex of rapper 50 Cent. And the mother of his child. Day 20. Renewed mistrial motion. So, people, day 20 opened with tension, not from witness testimony, but from a renewed legal maneuver by the defense. For the second time in the trial, Sean Combs' attorneys filed a motion for mistrial, arguing that ongoing media coverage and the judge's own remarks had tainted the impartiality of the jury. They point specifically to several high-profile headlines and social media commentary that had gone viral over the weekend. Defense counsel argued that jurors were being bombarded by bias and that Judge Subramaniam's earlier courtroom admonitions could be interpreted as influencing juror perception of Combs' credibility, but the judge was having none of it. The judge responded, "This court will not be swayed by outside noise. The facts remain paramount." Shit. He emphasized that jurors had been repeatedly instructed to avoid all media related to the case and confirmed that no evidence existed to show those instructions had been violated. My lord, people, I need a bloody drink.
Where's my yak? Where's my yak? Oh.
The motion was denied. This moment underscored the high-stakes pressure surrounding this trial, not just for Combs, but for the judicial system itself, as it attempts to maintain integrity in a hyper-connected, media-saturated world. Whoa.
You hate on a nigga.
Day 21, recap and reinforcement. So, day 21 wrapped the week, not with new testimony, but with a strategic replay of what the prosecution has spent nearly a month constructing a comprehensive portrait of coercion, manipulation, and trauma. Whoa. Prosecutors methodologically recapped testimony from multiple accusers, Cassie Ventura, Maya, Banner, and others, using video clips, voice memos, and financial documents to connect dots across more than a decade of alleged abuse. One of the most striking pieces of evidence was an audio clip reportedly recorded during a 2015 confrontation. Bloody hell, confrontation. Give me a round of applause for that. Bloody hell. Just stumbling over my words and shit, people. Anyway, during a 2015 confrontation between Combs and a former partner, where a heated argument turns into a screaming tirade, while the defense objected to the clip's admissibility, the judge allowed it, saying its probative value outweighed the risk of prejudice. But perhaps the most impactful moment came with the testimony of a clinical trauma psychologist, Dr. Andrian Fields, who specializes in domestic abuse recovery. She walked the jury through what she described as trauma bonding, a psychological state in which victims become deeply entangled with their abuser over time, even defending them or returning after violence. What we see here is consistent with long-term trauma bonding, Dr. Fields testified. There's evidence of reward and punishment cycles, forced dependency, and emotional isolation, or textbook. Her expert analysis provided jurors with a lens through which to interpret the sometimes confusing and contradictory emotions voiced by past witnesses. It added a layer of psychological credibility to the prosecution's theory of a controlled, abusive environment meticulously maintained by Combs. People, Day 21 didn't bring fireworks, but it solidified the emotional and intellectual groundwork of the prosecution's case, a quiet but powerful reinforcement of patterns that, according to them, are too consistent to be coincidence. Jesus, Mary, and of course, Joseph. Join us next time, people. Bloody hell.